Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something pretty interesting. People who are basically living their entire lives using cryptocurrency.
Yeah, not just trading it, but like using it for rent, food, travel, everything.
Exactly. We're calling them crypto nomads. We've got some material here from a podcast narration, digital nomads and crypto, living off the grid using only Bitcoin.
Right. And our goal today is to sort of unpack that. How does this lifestyle actually function? What are the big hurdles?
And then maybe what it tells us about where things might be heading, this idea of an untethered life.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get practical. How does someone even begin to do this? What tools are they using if they want to ditch fiat currency completely?
Well, it's a mix, really. Bitcoin is obviously key, kind of the foundation. But then you see stable coins quite a bit, like USDT.
Because they're pegged to, say, the dollar, right? So
Yeah.
less wild price swings day to day.
Exactly. Makes budgeting slightly less terrifying. And for people focused on privacy, coins like Monero pop up too.
Okay, but how do you actually spend it? You can't just wave your phone at every shopkeeper.
Not quite yet, no. Crypto debit cards are a big help. They convert crypto to fiat at the point of sale.
Ah, okay. So that bridges the gap.
It does. Plus, there are peer-to-peer platforms. So you're essentially trading crypto directly with someone else, maybe for local cash if you absolutely need it, or for goods and services.
And are there specific places where this is easier, or you might actually find a cafe that takes Bitcoin directly?
The narration mentioned a few hotspots. El Salvador obviously made Bitcoin legal tender. But also places like Thailand, Portugal, even parts of Mexico are seeing more adoption.
So not just tech conferences, but actual everyday spots.
Yeah, surprisingly widespread in certain areas, cafes, hotels sometimes. The whole idea is getting paid in crypto, spending in crypto, maybe even investing savings in crypto. Zero fiat.
It sounds incredibly liberating on one hand, but I imagine the challenges are pretty significant too. It can't all be smooth sailing.
Oh, absolutely not. The narration painted this picture of needing a really diverse skill set. It said something like part hacker, part hustler, part economist.
Okay, break that down. Hacker for the tech side.
Yeah, navigating wallets, security, maybe understanding the blockchain basics. Hustler for finding ways to earn crypto, finding merchants who accept it, negotiating maybe.
And economists
For managing the volatility. Exchange rates aren't just background noise. They directly impact your spending power day to day. Plus, just explaining Bitcoin to a vendor who's never heard of it can be, well, a task.
Right. And then there's the big one, governments. Regulations must be a constant worry.
A huge challenge. The legal landscape is shifting all the time. And in some countries, the narration mentioned China and Morocco specifically. Just holding crypto can put you at serious legal risk.
Wow. So that makes this lifestyle basically impossible in some places.
Or incredibly difficult and risky, yeah. You can't just ignore borders and laws.
So how did these nomads adapt? What are the workarounds when they hit these walls?
They get pretty resourceful. Things like VPNs are common, to bypass geographical internet blocks.
Standard digital nomad tool, really.
True. But also using those peer-to-peer platforms, again, specifically to trade outside of the official regulated exchanges, which might be blocked or heavily monitored.
Kind of going underground, digitally speaking.
A bit, yeah. And using encrypted messaging apps for coordinating these trades or just communicating securely, they're constantly building these sort of digital detours around the roadblocks.
It sounds like a real cat and mouse game sometimes. Is this still a niche thing, or is it actually growing?
The narration suggested it's growing, and pretty
Yeah.
quickly. It makes sense, right? You
Yeah.
connect it to the rise of remote work.
Definitely. The pandemic accelerated that hugely.
Exactly. And maybe also, for some people, a bit less trust in, traditional banks or even national currencies.
So the appeal is being untethered, not tied to one country, one bank, one address.
That seems to be a core part of it. All you really need is an internet connection and a crypto wallet. That lowers the bar compared to traditional finance, doesn't it?
Yeah, no need for proof of address, credit history in the same way.
Right. It opens possibilities.
So pulling it together, the main takeaway isn't just, oh, look at this new tech. It's more profound.
I think so. The narration really framed it as enabling a kind of lifestyle revolution. This idea of a generation potentially living unbanked, untethered, and unrestricted.
Wow. Strong words.
Yeah. And presenting it not as some far-off future, but as something people are doing now, the present of freedom, as they put it, for those living on these blockchain networks.
It still feels a bit sci-fi, though. But that anecdote you mentioned from the narration, buying lunch in Thailand.
Exactly. Someone just, paying for their meal with Bitcoin. It makes it real.
It certainly does.
And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What happens if more people start operating outside these traditional financial and geographical lines? What does that world look like?
Hmm. A really interesting question to ponder. Definitely gives you food for thought about where decentralized tech might take us.